What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we've got a breakdown for how to earn the Barrow-Dyad exotic machine gun inside of episode Heresy. So this one's dropped a bit earlier than what we probably anticipated. Normally Act 3 has been for exotic missions and things like that. This one's a bit different from a normal exotic mission, as it does include a handful of secrets in order to actually unlock it. So we'll break it down in the video. Of course, this weapon comes with panic response, and it generates blight as it deals damage, and while not firing, blight depletes and the magazine's gradually filled. We can reload the weapon to convert stored blight into blighted seekers. And then the weapon also resonates with our choices, and hitting 3 different targets generates a large amount of blight, and blighted seekers bore through targets. So it's a pretty interesting weapon. I've yet to really play around with it. I'm going to focus on actually breaking down how to get it, as it's a pretty lengthy quest, so let's get straight into it. This first section, I'm actually not sure right now if it's entirely necessary, but basically, during the weekly story quest for week 2 of the episode, we had a step to go into the Nether. When we got there, here in the outside area of the Dreadnaught, the one where we have the big Tormentor boss, if you're looking out towards space, all the way on the right-hand side of the zone, there was a taken blight up on this pillar. If you jump towards it, it actually pulls you in and through a portal, and it will show an icon as well as a tooltip that says something whispers to the right. So if you stand on the plate in front of the icon, wait for the icon to show up, then walk to the right, it teleported us into a section where we could pick up and take an Osseous Fragment. Now this is the part where I'm not sure if this is a precursor to the quest or an objective that actually can be completed later on. But we did this first. If you've already completed the weekly story for the week, you may find that you get an exotic quest pop-up. So basically, it does require completion of week 2 of Heresy's story. Either way, if that doesn't do it on its own, go and get the ossified fragment and you should be good. And the quest that'll pop up is called the Taken Path. We can see immediately it will drop the Barrow-Dyad. The first quest objective is to acquire something called the Sotopic Rune. Now, when you look in the rune enhancement menu at the shaping slab in Heresy's apartment, you'll notice that one of the options is the Sotopic Rune. So you can select that if you're the appropriate level already. You may have to deselect another rune, but once you've done that, it'll say find something that the Hive have concealed somewhere in Sorrow's Harbour. So basically, head to Sorrow's Harbour on the moon. And what you'll actually have to do in Sorrow's Harbour is head into the Lost Sector for that zone. Once you get down there, you'll notice a taken blight and a kind of bubble. There'll be another one of those rune plates. And when you stand on it, you'll get an icon and it will say something behind whispers. This basically means you need to walk backwards off the plate. It may take a couple of tries, they can be a bit janky. After that, it will teleport you and the Lost Sector will become full of taken enemies. Basically, take them all down. And then the next step will say we need to find the ossified fragment hidden in the Forgotten Shore. So once again, Forgotten Shore in the Cosmodrome, and we actually need to go to the Val's Labyrinth Lost Sector now. Once inside, once again, there'll be a plate with a rune icon that it'll lead us to. This time it'll say something whispers forward. So basically, step forward, and once again, the Lost Sector will become full of taken enemies and blight. Bit of a maze this time around. You'll have to sort of work through some of the tunnels, following enemy markers on the radar, and you'll be able to take out all of the taken in here, and again, it'll drop another ossified fragment. After this, we return to the shaping slab, and it will give us 3 legendary quests. So best way to approach these 3 quests is to initially go to Sorrow's Harbour. When you get to Sorrow's Harbour, you'll notice a taken relic. There will be a waypoint for it. Pick the relic up, and we can start killing enemies with it. Once we've killed enough enemies, the relic will become charged, and we'll be able to dunk it into the same node that we picked it up from. That's the first quest step. The next one is to head to the Hallowed Grove, another Lost Sector, this time in the sludge in the European Dead Zone. Again, there'll be a taken relic, and this time there's a kind of timed component, so pick the relic up, kill a bunch of taken with it, work your way round to the top where there's an enemy called Shadow of Oryx, and you'll need to kill that enemy before the timer runs out. That'll take us on to the next step, which is to complete Nightmare Hunt Pride on the moon. So load up the Nightmare Hunt, and again, when we get to the boss here, there'll be a taken relic. We use that to defeat the boss. And the final step to complete all 3 of the legendary quests will be to find a taken Osseous Fragment aboard the Dreadnaught. So these will actually be found inside of Hive statues on the Dreadnaught. If you're in the Court of Oryx area, all the way on the far side, near one of the entrance points, you'll notice one of these darkness statues, and we can interact with it to call to power. That will spawn an enemy. When we kill them, we'll get the Osseous Fragment. The next one will be found in the Trenchway area before you get to the zone with the big Tormentor boss. To the left-hand side of where we enter that, there'll be another one of the statues. Interact with it, kill the enemy, and get the fragment. The last statue we found, is in the area where we fight the big Taken Ogre boss. When you first drop down in the Mausoleum zone, you'll find the statue here. So again, interact, kill the enemy, and we get the next fragment. Once we have all 3 of the fragments, we're able to boot up the exotic mission itself, which is called Derealize. Now, on the most part, we're just running through here killing enemies. There's a mechanic where there are a bunch of those sort of eyes in the air, and when they can see you, we'll get stacks of suffocating terror. If we get full stacks of that, obviously, it will kill us. Otherwise, we keep working through and pursue the Dread Commander. And there are some really cool encounters in this mission using a mixture of the mechanics we already sort of encountered throughout the quest with the Taken Relic. Most of it is actually fairly self-explanatory, really. When we get the relic, we charge it up by killing enemies. Once it's charged, we'll get torn between dimensions and we'll be able to jump up on some platforms to actually go and dunk the fully charged relic. We basically rinse and repeat through that until we've killed the boss. After that boss is killed, there'll be a sort of miniature rune puzzle. This took us a minute to figure out, but eventually the plates next to the runes will actually come up with a marker for A, B, C, or D. This relates to the symbol that we see on the tablet in front of us. So when you first hop on, the first symbol will simply require us to move to the right. And the next time, if the plate says C, that means we need C, the 3rd symbol that we can actually visibly see in front of us. But what we have to do is, if we don't get the correct symbol on the tablet, we'll have to stay on it until we're teleported and actually get the matching correct symbol. It's a little bit tricky, may take a couple of runs, but basically whatever letter the plate has will correlate to one of the symbols, but if the rune tablet shows a different symbol, we have to stay on the plate until we're teleported in order to get it correct. After that, there's a very tricky sort of traversal section where we have to jump through a bunch of holes going between 2 different zones to get past a bunch of shields. This is quite difficult to really explain thoroughly. It will take some trial and error. Also in one of the dark cavernous areas, eventually you'll get to a locked shielded door. And beneath this zone, if we sort of backtrack, there are a handful of crystals that we need to shoot. We need to shoot 3 void crystals that we'll see floating in the air, and that will unlock the door. Then we're at a boss fight, which is pretty basic once again. We need to damage the boss initially. Once we get him down to a 1/3 of health, we'll get teleported to Torn Between Dimensions. Then we can damage the alternate version of that boss, the Taken version, and at a 1/3 of health, it will teleport us back to the normal dimension, and we basically go back and forth until we've done enough damage. Then it will call us to go and stand on the plate to seal the room that the boss is in, and that's basically the end of the mission for now. After that, there will be a quest which requires subsequent runs of the exotic mission itself to actually pick up the catalysts and the various upgrades. That's explained in the tooltips, so nothing too wild on that front. I figured that might be a separate video if it is worthy of a guide, but for an initial unlock for the Barrow-Dyad, that is basically how it's done. So it'll require quite a bit of searching around. Obviously, from our run of the Nether, there'll be an additional hive statue that you might need to find in a different zone, which we didn't get in our run because there are a total of 4 zones, right? So there'll be a bit of gameplay exploration for everyone while running this quest, no doubt, but I figured a breakdown of generally how it works would be useful. So I hope this has been helpful, guys. If it has, a rating below really does help us on the channel. Also be sure to get subscribed so that I can keep you posted with more Destiny content. Otherwise though, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.